I knew something was wrong the moment the silence in our home stopped feeling peaceful and started feeling watchful. You don't realize how chilling silence can be until it begins to hide things from you, until it becomes the quietest warning. Your instincts can make. 4 weeks, suspicion had been gnawing at the back of my ribs like some small, trapped animal, scratching whenever my husband, Aaron, smiled too gently, spoke too vaguely, or tucked his phone just slightly out of sight. We lived in a quiet suburban corner outside Portland Maple Springs, a place with tidy lawns, friendly neighbors, and the illusion that nothing dark could possibly make a home there. But darkness doesn't need a place, it only needs people. And lately, Aaron had become a stranger, wrapped in the skin of the man, married. He guarded his phone like it contained state secrets. He stepped outside to answer calls, always speaking in a voice too low to catch. When I asked where he'd been, he offered excuses that sounded rehearsed, flimsy, barely held together by his forced smile. He tried rationalizing work stress, fatigue, the natural drift of long marriages, but the truth stayed coiled in my chest, whispering its suspicion. The night everything snapped into clarity started like any other lie he'd recently told. "I'm heading to Mark's," he said, grabbing his keys, his voice calm to calm. "We're catching up over a few beers." Mark, his best friend, had been in Switzerland for 2 weeks. I knew because I'd seen the vacation photos posted online. I'd quietly checked them just hours earlier. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Something inside me, maybe fear, maybe fury, told me to wait, to observe. So I acted as if I believed him, as if his lie hadn't sliced through me like a paper cut you don't feel until it starts bleeding, when the door shut behind him. I grabbed my phone and opened the location sharing app we'd installed years ago for emergencies. His dot blinked on the map. It's not in a residential neighborhood, not anywhere near Mark's place. A bar? The Rivet? Room. My heart dropped so hard, it felt like it bruised something inside me. The drive there was a blur of trembling, fingers, and swallowed panic. I parked across the street, unable to move at first, afraid of what seeing him would do to me. But fear is useless when your soul demands answers. Inside, the bar lights buzzed dimly, casting amber shadows across the crowd. I scanned the booths, searching for the face I loved, the face I feared I no longer knew. And there he was, tucked away in the back corner, hunched slightly toward a woman. She had a soft laugh, the kind that fluttered more than echoed. They shared a beer, leaning closer than strangers would, closer than friends should. My stomach tightened so painfully it felt like someone had clenched a fist inside me. I froze. My chest rose and fell in shallow, panicked breaths. When Aaron suddenly turned his head toward my direction, I lurched downward so quickly. I hit my knee on the base of a table. Pain shot up my leg, but terror was louder. I crouched there, hiding behind a couple drunk on cheap margaritas. My pulse hammered violently in my ears. But Aaron wasn't looking at me. He was calling a waitress over for another drink. Relief hit me in a wave so dizzying I nearly collapsed completely. But then I looked up again just long enough to see him smiling at her, a smile that wasn't mine, a warmth that hadn't belonged to us in a long time. I walked out of the bar before my heart cracked in public, at home. I crawled into bed and cried into the sheets like they could hide my heartbreak from the world. I cried until grief exhausted me into sleep. At 2 a.m., the front door creaked open. His footsteps stumbled. Karen fell onto the bed beside me with the drunken heaviness of a man who had no idea he was shattering someone. He kissed my forehead, a gentle, familiar gesture that burned. This time. "Sorry if I woke you," he whispered, his breath tinged with beer. I could sense his love. I stared into the darkness, swallowing the scream forming in my throat. How dare he be tender after betraying me? How dare he lie so easily? I didn't sleep again that night. In the morning, I rolled over to find a breakfast tray beside Meeg's. Over easy, bacon, toast, drizzled with chocolate syrup. Next to it, in his messy handwriting. "Happy anniversary, my love." Anniversary? I had forgotten. My body clenched from the guilt of forgetting and the heartbreak of remembering all at once. He wasn't in the room. I got up to brush my teeth, staring hollowly at my reflection. I looked exactly what I felt cracked in places no one else could. Aaron slipped into the bathroom behind me, pressing a kiss to my cheek. "Good morning, beautiful." I stepped away from him like his touch burned. "What's wrong?" he asked, eyebrows lifting with practiced concern. I turned, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I know you're cheating on me." His expression shifted not to guilt, but confusion. Genuine confusion. "What?" "I know you weren't at Mark's last night," I whispered. "I tracked your location. I saw you at the Rivet Room, with a woman." His face went blank. Then he laughed. Not a chuckle. A laugh. A deep, breathless, doubled-over laugh that made my blood boil. I shoved him away, fury clawing through my chest, and stormed into the living room. He followed, still trying to catch his breath. "Honey, hang on, please, just sit down. Let me explain. I don't want to hear your lies." 30 seconds, he pleaded. "Just give me that," I said, only because I needed to know what else he could possibly make up. He started with a question. "Do you remember that night at La Rasa, the Italian place, when I had those 4 drinks and ended up telling you about my past?" Of course, I remembered. He'd told me things that night he'd never spoken of before, pieces of a childhood marked by instability and whispered secrets. One detail in particular resurfaced, the sister he'd lost contact with before he turned 10. "Aaron," I whispered. The corner of his mouth lifted, not in amusement now, but in something painful. "The woman at the bar," he said softly. "That was her. Her name's Claire now. We found each other." Finally my breath caught. My mind spun his long-lost sister. I wanted to believe him. I wanted relief to wash away the suspicion that had weighed me down for months, but disbelief held tight. "Then why lie?" I asked, voice cracking. Because I didn't know if meeting her would go well, and if it didn't, I didn't want to bring you into that. I didn't want to disappoint you, or get your hopes up. The explanation made sense, but the hurt remained. "I want to see the messages," I said. He hesitated only a second before showing them. A long thread, her reaching out, him hesitant, but curious. Details that matched what he'd told me years ago. It all aligned, and yet, trust doesn't recover instantly. I asked to meet her. He agreed, but we had anniversary plans. First a couple's massage at 1 p.m., then dinner. Went along with it mechanically, the day feeling like a strange dream stitched over a nightmare. At the spa, I tried to relax, but tension followed me like a shadow. On the car ride afterward, he talked more than I did. I answered enough, too. Keep the silence from smothering us both. That evening, I chose a long wine-colored dress. Softer color, one I hoped would hide how raw I felt. Aaron looked handsome, almost painfully so, and for a moment, I wondered if things could ever go. Back to normal. Dinner was quiet. I forced smiles, forced laughs. I played the role of a wife trying to trust again. Near the end of the meal, Aaron's phone buzzed. "Claire," she asked where we were. "She doesn't know I'm coming," I asked stiffly. He blinked. "No. Should she?" Anger flared hot in my chest. "Get the check," I said tightly. We drove to the bar. My hands trembled in my lap. My stomach twisted inside. A woman with chestnut hair and unmistakably green eyes turned as Aaron approached. When I stepped forward, she froze not in discomfort, but in surprise. "This is my wife," Aaron said. Her smile was warm, beautiful, disarming. "It's so nice to meet you." Something inside me eased, just slightly. We talked, we drank, we laughed. And for the first time since the unraveling began, I felt the ground steady beneath my feet. I even felt guilty for the names I called her in my head. When she mentioned possibly moving to town and needing a place to stay temporarily, I agreed. Before Aaron could even respond, maybe it was kindness, maybe guilt, maybe the exhaustion of fighting shadows, Aaron beamed. "The two most important women in my life, getting along. I can't tell you how much that means." We hugged her goodnight. On the drive home, I replayed her smile in my mind. How warm. I felt how it lingered longer than necessary later. In bed, while Aaron slept beside me, something strange stirred in my chest. Not fear, not jealousy, something I didn't dare name. Not yet. The week Claire moved in felt like the house learned. A new rhythm, one that I both cherished and feared. It was late October when the moving truck arrived, the kind of cold that pinched the skin and made breath visible in small white clouds. I remember the date because Aaron insisted on helping carry the boxes himself, as if muscle and sweat could prove how grateful he was. He looked almost boyish that day, sleeves rolled up, hair mussed. Claire drove up in a battered rental with a smile that made the world seem softer around the edges. When she stepped onto our porch with 2 duffel bags and a cardboard box labeled Essentials, something in me unlatched. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was the illusion of rightness that comes with doing a kind thing. Whatever it was, I let it in. We offered her the guest room at first, which later became hers permanently. It's a small space with a window that watched the sycamore in the yard shake its leaves every evening. She thanked me with a hug that smelled faintly of the lavender shampoo she used. I felt the awkwardness of that gratitude like static. Aaron was radiant proud, almost PayPal, about bringing family home. I tried to be that proud wife. I wanted to mean it. Those early days were practical. We bought a bookshelf for her books, assembled a lamp she said she'd had since college, and rearranged furniture so her framed photos would sit comfortably. On the mantel, school pictures, older people I assumed were relatives. A snapshot of a hospital corridor that explained later why she chose nursing. She kept her apartment neat with the same mechanical steadiness most nurses develop folded. Towels, labeled spice jars, a small drawer for the chargers and cords that always seemed to have minds of their own. Made the house feel busier in a good way. It made the house feel less like a stage 4 secrets, and more like a living thing again. We started to fall into a fragile, ordinary pattern diners together. Shared errands, the mundane intimacy of grocery shopping. The mundane is a liar. It cloaks small betrayals and disguises their shapes until they're too familiar to name. I told myself I was grateful. I told myself this was healing. I said it aloud so many times that it nearly became true. Claire's humor was quiet, edged with a self-deprecating sharpness. She collected small jokes like seashells and kept them in pockets of conversation where I could find them. She had a habit of tapping the table in time to music only she seemed to hear. She liked her coffee black and her late nights early, often. Returning from a shift with a story tucked under her blouse about a child who'd freaked out over a cartoon. Or an old man who insisted on telling his life one more time. She was full of those fragments her memory stitched together by hospital corridors, like kindnesses and the small, essential brutalities of her work. She laughed easily, and when she laughed, her green eyes crinkled in a way that made me want to memorize them. It's ridiculous how simple things accumulate into a kind of gravity. At first, it was small, a shared recipe, a late-night conversation on the couch while Aaron dozed to some soft rock station, the way she would brush crumbs. from the counter and hand me the pan as if we'd been doing this chore together forever. It's the little habitual acts that anchor you to another person pouring coffee into a favorite mug, leaving notes on the fridge when you knew the other person would be tired. These are the bricks that build a life. Before I realized I was building anything, I had made a path that led straight to her. I started to notice the way she looked at me. Not with the casual politeness of a roommate or the passing attention of a friend, but with something layered and private. It was in the way she lingered when our hands passed while switching a towel, in the way she watched my mouth when I spoke, as if memorizing the small shapes I made. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was imagining it because I wanted to feel wanted again. Maybe both things were true. But the pull was there, quiet at first, then insistent. Like a song I hadn't meant to learn that would not leave my head. There were stolen moments, too many maybe. We began to shop together. That was innocent, I told myself. Then came the long afternoons when Erin worked late. Claire and I would make elaborate dinners, she with the knives and ease of someone who'd cut through decades of hospital med packs, me with the nervous precision of someone who still measured happiness in perfect roast timing. We'd sip a glass of wine, and conversation slipped into corners where it whispered secrets. We found the same bands, the same guilty pleasure shows, the same shade of idealism, shared our small cruelties, the tiny resentments we held for our own pasts. One night we stayed up talking until dawn about the reasons people leave and the reasons people return. That night, in the gray blue before the sun, our hands touched on the counter and didn't move away. The light caught on her skin, and everything else dimmed. I told myself I would stop it. I've set rules in my head like desperate vows. This will not happen. This cannot happen. You will not become the person who betrays the life you promised. But rules are fragile when you are tired and complicated, and the world has worn thin. The thing about desire is that it is not a tidy beast. It does not announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in with a soft footfall and then rearranges the furniture of your life until the rooms are unrecognizable. The first time we kissed, it wasn't cinematic. There were no dramatic shouts, no flash of lightning. It was midnight and the house was asleep, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Erin was traveling for work, a 2-day trip to Seattle that left the house too empty. We're in the kitchen, elbows on the counter, laughing about a ridiculous nurse story Claire had recounted. Her face moved closer as she mimed to patience. Dramatic insistence on the existence of a celebrity. There was a beat, a suspended second where both of us understood we were crossing a line. Then my hand lifted, almost without permission, and found the small tense of her jaw. Her lips were soft in a way that made the room tilt. I remember the smell of her hair lavender and something like lemon peeland, the taste of wine and salt. There were no promises, only the silent agency of two people acknowledging a hunger. Afterward, there was a quiet that thrummed like a held breath. We lingered near the sink, as if by not leaving the room, we could preserve some delicate truce with ourselves. I felt guilty, yes, but it was tangled with something richer. The dizzy pleasure of finally being seen. We tried to keep it secret at first. It's funny how secrecy gives the act of betrayal a rhythm all its own. We would time kisses between Erin's calls, exchange notes in the form of hushed messages when we both had separate tasks, and invent errands in the name of fresh air and groceries. We started to meet in places that smelled like anonymity late-night diners, the gap between closing time at the bookstore, hospital staff rooms where the hum of machines made privacy laminated in static white noise. The city became a map of places that are not quite private enough to feel safe, and not public enough to feel condemned. Our perfect gray zone. I told myself we would stop if anyone ever got hurt. I meant it in the way casualties are planned for in wartime, with the sort of calm that assumes you'll be the one to keep tally and keep your hands clean. But people are not maps you redraw without consequence. The human heart has a stubborn geography. The more I tried to work against it, the more it pushed back. Erin changed. It wasn't immediate. It was a slow, creaking pivot. Hey, at first he was. Only oddly distant, maladjusted in small ways that could be attributed to stress. Then he began to find reasons to sleep on the couch.
Okay.
He stopped initiating little rituals we had, the Sunday paper folding, the way he used to steal my hand under. The table at dim restaurants. When I confronted him once, he said, "Work is eating me." He said it without the vividness he used to have, and with the kind of weary resignation that made it hard to press further. I felt the fray, but I also felt the pull. We spent afternoons curled together on the living room rug where she would trace idle patterns on my arm and say things like, "You deserve to be wanted," as if that were a fact she had decided to prove. The sentences that started as comfort eventually hardened into a creed. Her hand on my arm said what words could not. I am here. That quiet insistence was intoxicating. Our love made practical rooms into secret gardens. The attic, the place where we'd keep old holiday decorations and loose screws and a box of my father's odd coins, became the place where we could be certain no footsteps would find us. We would climb the narrow ladder, close the hatch, and sit on the flattened carpet where cobwebs caught in the window light. In the daytime, the attic was golden, dust motes hanging like planets, a lullaby in the faint hum from the vents. At night, it felt like another life entirely, one of hushed breath and soft urgency, where we could speak in fragments and feel forgiven. There's a peculiar logic to guilt. It piles up in your chest until you cannot breathe, and then you do. It's the strangest things to ease the pressure. You tell yourself you're doing the right thing because the person you're hurting is not the one you need to save. You justify with sentences that would sound absurd to anyone with a clearer view, claiming that love itself can cure the harm you cause. I made these justifications for months without ever writing them down. Later, in court, I would say things that sounded more respectable. Here, in the quiet of these years, I only had reasons that felt true in the moment. Not everyone noticed. Neighbors thought we were the picture of a modern blended family. At holiday dinners, Claire laughed politely and passed the pie. When the Thanksgiving sprouts burned a little, she showed me how to salvage them with a dash of lemon. She was adept in that domestic way that made my mother's voice seem closer than it had in years. Aaron, bless him, kept up the pretense of normalcy so well I sometimes pitied him for the stamina of his lies. The first time Aaron came home early and walked into the living room to find us together, it was like having a match thrown into a dry field. I remember the day in vivid color, the sound of the front door, his work shoes thudding softly against the hardwood, the faint smell of his cologne, something like cedar. He dropped his briefcase and turned with that particular confusion I'd come to fear. Our eyes met, and for a terrible suspended second the world waited for him to decide which reality to step into. In his hand, the briefcase felt like an accusation. He asked the question that every betrayed person asks, with the quiet outrage of someone discovering an unexpected crime scene. What is going on? Claire wrapped a sheet around herself, modesty and shock mixed into a flurry of motion, and went to speak. Aaron didn't let her. He grabbed for the thread of the visible truth like a man trying to salvage an artifact from a shipwreck. They went into the guest room, the room that had once been neutral, a place for visiting kin and polite conversation. I could hear the low murmur of voices, then rising tones, the sound of paper ripped in half by panic. When I walked in, Aaron launched into a kind of grief I had never seen from him. He was shaking, his words spilling over each other, the way they do when someone is drowning in the rawness of a rupture. He said things that were small and devastating. I trusted you. How could you? You were my wife. It landed like stones. His face sagged into something that looked like mourning. I tried to speak, to say the things we say in defense of self-apologies. Reasons, the threadbare explanations of people who do terrible things and then must explain them. But he turned his anger on me in a way that cut further than any accuse. He called me ungrateful. He called me selfish. He told me he felt sick. It was an ugliness that belonged to a man who had been turned inside out. I wanted to take it back, every small act of betrayal. I wanted to go back to the night. Sure, spark had ignited and put a different book on the table, choose a different path. Wanted to salvage the man we used to be. Instead, I stood in the doorway while he accused and Claire wrapped herself in a sheet and we slept in the separate rooms of our own house like small islands. The following day, legal papers appeared as if arranged by fate. The divorce papers sitting on the dining table were precise and cold, their edges crisp enough to cut. Aaron served them to me with the kind of quiet finality that would become the hinge upon which everything else rotated. A tone, remember. If I laughed or if I cried first. Somewhere between those two, the world narrowed until only our names and the word final remained. Claire and I read the papers together, and something tender and dreadful passed between us. We laughed soft and hysterical, the same sound people make when the world is too heavy to hold them. Then we cried, and then we made a plan. We were practical, resourceful, and ashamed in ways that nearly matched. She found a job not long after. A good placement at the hospital where her competence made her indispensable. We moved into the small condo on Willow Street, and it felt like a new map drawn over an old one, where some traces of the previous lines still showed through. For a while after the divorce, the world rewarded us with a kind of ease I had not expected. We went to the farmer's market. We made spreadsheets for our budgets. We argued about paint colors and which curtains would suit the living room. Our love was the sort that ordinary people would call peaceful, practical, steady, richly domestic. At night we would fall asleep tucked close, and I would think, not without a spike of shame, that in this arrangement I felt more seen and safer than at the end of my marriage. But safety is not the same as righteousness. The hours of quiet joy were threaded through with a persistent ache, not guilt, so much as a knowledge that we had not simply created an alternate life. It also left someone grieving in the ruins. I would catch myself stealing glances at the back of Aaron's head as he walked past the grocery aisle, an echo of what had been, and my chest would clench. We forged a life, yes. We learned each other in the way lovers do, through tiny betrayals and bigger mercies. And yet, in the mouths of others, we would sometimes hear the word shame, like an uninvited guest. People whisper, and sometimes those whispers become a wind that erodes the border between private and public, between the story you tell and the one you cannot. We kept our curtains closed for a while, as if light could be shamed into silence. We learned to answer polite questions with practiced neutrality and to avoid the longer ones that pried. And still, when I lie awake at night in the dim blue of course, our small condo, listening to Claire's slow, even breaths beside me, I feel the weight of what we did, and I know the geometry of pain. I know there are no winners in this map, only survivors, each with wounds that will scar and shape them. In different ways? I do not claim I have exoneration. What I have is the messy work of being human, of loving, of hurting, of trying to repair where repair is possible. The world moved forward. People do. But there are moments that make a life cleave on to a new axis. For me, that axis was not a single event, but a steady accumulation, a kiss in the kitchen. A sheet wrapped around bare shoulders, the hush of an attic. The sound of Aaron's briefcase hitting the floor, and the way his voice shattered. Those things together built the life I have now, imperfect and real. And they shaped what I would later have to explain to myself in the quiet hours. When I look back, I think of the little things, the way Claire would tuck the blankets around me when I was cold, or how she left a note on the bathroom mirror when she'd gone on night shift. Love you. Be brave. Such small phrases become the scaffolding of a life. They are also the cut glass that can still stab when you touch them carelessly. At the time, it felt like a salvage operation for our hearts. Later, with the cool hindsight that comes after the dust settles, I would see the edges more clearly. But for now, we moved forward, making schedules, paying off moving trucks, and learning to live within the new contours we had drawn together, contours born of joy and of something darker. Both, I used to believe that once a storm passed, the air became lighter, that after surviving something catastrophic, the heart naturally sought peace. But peace, I learned, is not a guarantee. Sometimes it is a choice, a daily negotiation with every memory you wish you could rewrite. And sometimes it's a lie you tell yourself, because the truth feels too sharp. The first true test of our new life came the following spring. Claire had settled into her nursing position, earning the admiration of her colleagues with the same competence and warmth that had first drawn me in. She came home exhausted but glowing. Always with some story from the children's wards, mall victories, unexpected jokes, heartbreaking goodbyes. She kept a notebook filled with little moments she didn't want to forget. It was the kind of sentimental habit Erin would have mocked playfully, but she treated it with reverence, as if each memory had its own pulse. Our condo was small, but full of color, full of laughter, full of the kind of intimacy I once thought belonged only to stories. I wasn't allowed to live. And yet, beneath everything, a subtle tension hummed a current I tried to ignore. I still thought of Erin more often than I admitted, not with longing, but with a kind of ache reserved for something that once mattered deeply and then shattered. In your hand? I saw him again 3 months after the divorce. I was leaving the supermarket with a bag of oranges when someone called my name in a voice I hadn't heard sober in months. Lena? I froze. Aaron stood beside his car in the late afternoon light. He looked smaller somehow, as if the divorce had peeled away whatever armor he once wore. His hair was longer, unkempt, his shirt wrinkled, carried himself like someone waiting for a blow that had already been delivered. I swallowed. Hi. I didn't smile. His eyes scanned my face and lingered somewhere near the collar of my coat, as if trying to read the life I now lived from the details of my expression. You look good, he said quietly. Healthier. I didn't know how to answer that. He cleared his throat. Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly, for everything. I know I wasn't what you needed. I know I didn't listen enough or pay attention enough. His voice cracked, barely noticeable, but I caught it. Guilt stabbed me unexpectedly. Erin, you don't have to apologize. Yes, he said firmly. I do, because I was angry for a long time. Angry at you, at Claire, but mostly at myself. I know I wasn't easy to live with. I know I made you feel alone. My breath itched. The way he said it, calm, direct, pulled at an old bruise. And I know, he added softly, painfully, that she made you feel seen in a way I never learned how to. The words hit me like a cold wind. I stared at him, stunned. You knew. I'm not stupid, Lena. His voice shook now. I didn't want to admit it, but I saw it the night she moved in the way you talked to her, in the way I looked at you. I didn't want to believe it until, well, he didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I opened my mouth to say something, an apology, a denial, anything but. He lifted a hand. No, I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to let it go, to stop hating you. Hating her, hating myself, or something so unbearably human in his voice that it cracked something inside me. Before I could reply, stepped back, nodded once, and got into his car. He didn't look back when he drove away. I stood there in the parking lot gripping a grocery bag until the plastic nearly tore. Something deep in my chest trembled, a mixture of relief, sorrow, and a grief I thought I'd already buried. When I told Claire about seeing him, she stilled, as if bracing for impact. What did he say? She asked, drying her hands with the dish towel. Not much. Just closure. She stared at me longer than necessary. Did it hurt? The question sliced too cleanly. Yes, I admitted. Claire. Exhaled slowly, set the towel down, and stepped closer. I'm sorry. For my part in all of it, I know what we did hurt him deeply. I don't regret loving you, but I regret the way it happened. Her honesty disarmed me. I reached for her hand, not out of passion, but gratitude. It wasn't only your fault, I whispered. We both made choices. We did, she said, squeezing my fingers, and we have to live with them. Something in her tone unsettled me. I tilted my head. Claire. But she only smiled soft. Dan said she needed a shower. The next months were good. Peaceful. Almost too peaceful. We decorated the condo. We went on hikes. We found comfort in the quiet rhythms of ordinary life. But occasionally, something flickered across Claire's face, something I couldn't name. A shadow, a hesitation, a pinch of guilt or fear that dissolved the second I tried to grasp it. One night, while she slept, curled against me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, sensing an unease that had no origin. I told myself I was being paranoid. Trauma rewires the brain. I reminded myself that nothing was wrong, but the feeling stayed. Early summer arrived with a subtle shift. Claire began receiving calls she didn't answer. She grew easily startled. She spent more time sitting on the balcony at night, staring. Nothing in particular. When I asked if she was okay, she always said yes. Always with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. One evening, found her in the bathroom holding a small photograph, one I had never seen. A picture of her as a child, standing beside a woman who looked strikingly like her, except exhausted, hollow-eyed. I remembered Aaron mentioning their mother briefly, but he never spoke kindly of her when she noticed me watching. Claire stuffed the photo back into the drawer too quickly. Old memories, she said, but her voice betrayed her. It trembled. I stepped closer, gently. Claire, what's going on? Nothing, she insisted. Just ghosts. I wanted to press her, but a part of me held back, afraid of what truth might surface, afraid that pulling too hard on the threads of her past might unravel the life we built. I kissed her forehead. Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone. She nodded, but didn't answer. Later that night, I found her on the balcony, shaking silently, not crying, not breaking, just shaking. It's like a person trying to keep themselves from falling apart. I wrapped my arms around her from behind. She melted into me. Lena, she whispered, voice raw. Promise me you'll stay. Of course I'll stay, no matter what happens. A pit formed in my stomach. Claire, what's happening? But she only buried her face in my shoulder and whispered, I just need you. Her fear seeped. To me, like cold water, something was coming. I didn't know what, but the air around us felt charged, tightened like the moment before thunder cracks open the sky, and for the first time since leaving Aaron. I wondered if love could ever truly outrun the past. The first sign that everything was about to break was the envelope. It arrived on a Thursday morning in late July, slipped under our door with no name and no return address. Claire found it while I was making coffee. I heard the sharp intake of breath before I saw her face drained. Kite. Every muscle drawn taut like a wire about to snap. What is it? I asked. She didn't answer at first. She just held the envelope, staring at it with an expression so hollow it terrified me. When she finally opened it, single sheet slid out. A photograph of her and me in the attic, lying in each other's arms, taken months ago. My stomach plummeted. Claire, I whispered, who took this? She shook her head slowly too, slowly. Then she crumpled. Literally crumpled, knees hitting the floor as if gravity finally claimed her. I knew this would happen, she whispered, voice cracking. I knew someone would find us. My heart hammered painfully. Who, Claire? Who are you afraid of? She pressed her palms over her eyes. My mother froze. Her mother, the absent figure Aaron had mentioned only once, the woman who had given Claire up, vanished, then reappeared. Sometimes in whispers of addiction and instability. She found me, Claire said hoarsely. She always finds me eventually. I knelt beside her. Claire, that picture wasn't taken by your mother. It looks recent. She's not even in the state. Lena, her voice was hollow. You don't understand. She doesn't have to be here. She has people. She always has people. A chill ran through me. She's dangerous, Claire continued, eyes distant. Not violent, not directly, but she destroys things. She twists people. She threatened the aunt who raised me. She extorted money from anyone who ever cared about her. She steals, manipulates, lies. And she knows exactly how to break the people I love. Her breath hitched painfully. I left home because of her. I hid because of her. I changed my phone number 3 times. And when I found Aaron online, I prayed she wouldn't see it. Swallowed hard. Why would she care about us, about this picture? Because Claire whispered she wants leverage, to pull me back, to punish me for leaving, to make sure I never have anything good without her permission. Her hands trembled. I held them, though fear seeped into my own bones. What does she want? Claire laughed, a small, broken laugh. Money, probably, or control, or both. We sat on the kitchen floor, the photograph between us like a bomb waiting to detonate. For the next week, Claire barely slept. Every sound startled her. Every shadow near the window made her flinch. I tried to reassure her, to create a safety. Neither of us knew how to guarantee. I even suggested going to the police, but she begged me not to. She'd deny everything, Claire said. She's good at making me look crazy. The worse she spiraled, the more fiercely I loved her. But love doesn't erase fear. It only sharpens it. One night, she said something that unsettled me more than the photograph itself. Maybe we should leave, she whispered. Move. Start over, Claire. No, Lena, listen. Her voice cracked. We shouldn't. Stay here. Maybe your life is too exposed now. Maybe if I let you go, she'll stop. I grabbed her face gently but firmly. Stop. I'm not leaving you. But she ruined you? Claire whispered. Claire, she ruined everything I ever touched. She won't ruin anything, I said. Not this, not us. But a small voice inside me won. I refused to acknowledge felt doubt creeping in. 2 days later, everything came undone. I came home early from work. Claire wasn't there. Her bag was missing. Her shoes weren't by the door. For a moment, the world inside my head went silent. Not peaceful, just empty. I found her note on the counter. It's 3 sentences. I'm sorry, I can't drag you into this, please. Don't come looking. My throat closed. I called her cell, straight to voicemail. I called her hospital. She hadn't come in. I called the one coworker she trusted. She hadn't heard anything. By midnight, panic clawed through me. By 2 a.m., I was shaking too violently to think. By dawn, fear had hollowed me out entirely. She was gone. Disappeared like she'd been erased. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I filed a missing person report. I contacted every hospital in the city. Nothing. I called Aaron, yes, Aaron, because I didn't know who else to reach. His voice on the phone was quiet, stunned. She's missing? Yes. Silence. Then, I'll help look. And he did. We searched separately at first, then together. Libraries, shelters, cheap motels, bus lines. Aaron looked different during those days, focused, purposeful, almost protective. A key? One night, sitting in his car, he said softly, "No matter what happened between us, she's still my sister." I nodded. I had no voice left. It was 9 days after her disappearance. When my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize, my heart stopped. Lena, her voice, weak, broken, but hers. "Oh my God, Claire. Claire, where are you? Are you safe?" "Tell me I can't talk long," she whispered. Wind blew in the background. I'm figuring things out. "Claire, please, come home. Come back. I don't care what's going on. We'll deal with it together." Soft sobbing. "I can't. I've brought danger into your life. I won't." "Do that again?" Claire listened to me, but her voice trembled. "I love you. That's why I have to stay away. You deserve a life without looking over your shoulder." "Don't say goodbye," I begged. "Please, Claire, don't you dare say goodbye." "I'm not saying goodbye," she whispered. "Hey, just trust that I'm doing the right thing, Claire." But the line went dead. I called back immediately, and again. And again, the number was no longer in service. She'd vanished into the world, and I had no way to find her. Weeks passed. Then months. I tried to move forward, but grief clung to me like a second skin. Not the grief of death, something worse. It's the grief of an unfinished story. A person who still existed somewhere, still breathed, still moved through the world, but no longer belonged to it with you. Aaron and I crossed paths occasionally. Strangely, gently, we rebuilt some small version of peace. Not friendship, not forgiveness. Something in between, a faint recognition of shared loss. Sometimes he would ask, "Have you heard from her?" I always shook my head. He always looked away. A year has passed now. I still keep the photograph. Not the original, it was taken by police for documentation when I filed the report, but a copy I made before handing it over. In the picture, Claire is lying beside me. Her head resting on my arm, as the attic light falls in soft gold over her face. She looks safe. She looks loved. She looks like she belongs. Every morning, awake hoping for a message from her. A sign, clue. Anything, nothing ever comes, but sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet enough to hear my own heartbeat. I imagine her somewhere far away maybe, in a small town with warm lights, maybe in a hospital corridor where her hands heal strangers. Maybe hiding from ghosts I still don't know the names of. And I imagine her whispering into the darkness. "I'm trying, Lena. I'm trying to come back." I don't know if I'll ever see her again. I don't know if the past will ever loosen its grip. I don't know if true forgiveness is possible for the things we did. But I know this. Some loves don't end. They simply change their shape. They haunt you softly. They echo. They wait. And somewhere out there, Claire is still carrying the other half of my story until she decides to bring it home.